Title belts to Hall of Fame. Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, cry. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Guys, kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage.
Hey everybody, welcome back once again to Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Episode number 40, guys. Can you believe we've done this 40 times now?
And I keep hearing it's getting bigger and better too, man. Thank everybody for tuning in, man, because y'all what make it happen. And you know, Gene is the man, but it's so cool. I mean, he always has the subjects and everything, but just because sometimes we'll go off the cuff a little bit, maybe not pertain to what he was talking about, and that's what a lot of people text me and say that they love about it. I mean, we got a theme, but sometimes it goes off the cuff, and they really enjoy that too.
Then people text me and say, "Where in the world do y'all get these ideas from?" I say, "Well, we can blame Gene or Tommy one." I said, "Usually I don't come up with them." No, I don't say that. Man, Tommy, I was just going to tell Gene a little bit about our last weekend. Man, we had a cool time at the Superman Festival. Gene, it'd be something interesting for you to go to sometime. They say they have it year in and year out, the same week of every year and of every year and everything. And it was really cool. Me and Tommy stayed up in Metropolis for 2 days, and we met a lot of cool fans and a lot of cool of the animated characters and just a lot of cool stuff going on. And me and Tommy wandered up and down the road a little bit like we'd signed for a while and everything. Then, you know, you need a little break, and we'd get up and wander up and look at things and different people, and had some comics, which I've never been the biggest comic guy in the world as far as comic books and everything, but there was a ton of them there, and there was a ton of different people, all kind of characters and everything. Man, we had a great time over there in Illinois. And man, the night before that, we was in Mayfield, Kentucky for Mayfield Mayhem. And man, you talking about that was actually a cool night. I had a cool 3-day weekend. Me and Tommy had a good time, which we always do on the road, but we had a really good time. And the first night we was in a stretcher match with two guys that work for the NWA, which is Jeremiah Plunkett and Alex. I was trying to think what Alex's last name is, but they're both really good workers and everything. And man, I had a blast in the ring. I thought we had a great match with those two guys. And like I said, they're really good. If anybody gets a chance to go out and see those two, I think Plunkett's the North American NWA North American champion.
Mid-American title, throwback.
Mid-American, okay, yeah. And it looks just like that old Mid-American belt. And Alex, I think, is the junior heavyweight champion. Or Gene, you know more about that than I do. But what I'm saying is, if you get a chance to go see these two guys, they are really good and everything. And I really enjoyed myself wrestling. I think Tommy did also, but man, there was a lot of people that came out. You got Jason James, the promoter for Pro Wrestling Entertainment. He puts on a good show everywhere, family friendly. And I say family friendly, but he's got me and Tommy in a freaking stretcher match. But I mean, it was family friendly and everything. And we was in a big stretcher match, and that was real cool and everything. But man, we just had a really good last weekend, and I think Tommy would tell you he had a good time too, but I had a good time working for Pro Wrestling Entertainment and going up there for Tennessee Championship Wrestling and signing for 2 days up there in Illinois. It was just a real good time.
Yeah, big shout out to Jason, man. But I don't know what match Dougie was in. Them boys beat the hell out of me.
Well, yeah. I didn't say that. I didn't say they wasn't tough and didn't beat the hell out of us. But
no, we did. Hey, it was just for us to get to hang out. We don't get to do it much. A big 3-day run. Jerry the King Lawler was Well, he was in Madison,
with
Kentucky.
us.
And shit, they had 700-800 people there. You know, it was an outdoor show. I mean, it was a real good turnout. And then, of course, we went to Metropolis for 2 days, and that was a shindig on the main street down through town. And it was 2 days of some going on. And then they had wrestling, you know, that night. Doug and me, we signed during the day, and then we went to the matches and signed there too. So we had a real good weekend. For a change, we got to sit back and watch the matches in Metropolis. We wasn't in them. We just signed. So, you know, that's really always a nice, easy match. And the fans was just great. Just a great weekend, man.
And it was kind of cool, Gene. They had us a RV there, a big, long, big, nice RV, like the one I had and everything. It was really nice. Me and Tommy and King, we dressed in it. But what I was saying was so cool about it, which, I mean, it was nice and luxurious and everything. But what was cool about it to me was me and Lawler and King was in there, and they got talking about different towns. And somewhere out of the blue, Selmer, Tennessee, come up, and Tommy got telling Lawler, he said, I got a story I want to tell you. And Tommy told him a story about Ken Lucas. And I mean, I'm talking about there's just names that come up from the past, and they was telling each other stories, and Lawler was dying laughing, and I was laughing. Tommy was too. He was talking about Ken Lucas one time where he got busted open on TV, and he went to Selmer, and they was like in a 6-man tag or something. And I think it was Lawler and 2 guys against Tommy and Ken Lucas and Ricky Morton or somebody. And Ricky Morton tagged Ken Lucas. Well, he was bleeding real bad. But when he tagged him, first thing he did was got in the ring and grabbed Ricky Morton in the headlock and started punching him in the head. And he said all the fans and the boys and everything died laughing. And Lawler and Tommy was talking about that, but I thought of all the things. But we was talking about different people, and like you said, Gene, before, like some of this when you have some of the cards and we talk about different people. The last person I would have thought about coming up would have been Ken Lucas in that RV that night. But like I said, we sat in there when we wasn't signing. Like I said, we went out before the matches, an hour before, and we signed for an hour. And then in intermission, Lawler went back out, and we went back out and we signed again. Like Tommy said, they had a big crowd. We just had it was real fun night and a fun weekend.
Hey, and I can't think of his name off the cuff, but the man that put all that together, he wasn't with the fair. He was local. You remember his name, Dougie?
I don't remember his name, but he was like first or second cousins, Gene, with our camera guy from years past before Randy West. His name was Mike Shields.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that's who Tommy's talking about. His cousin.
Yeah,
Is that who you're talking about, Tommy? Well, he married.
The girl was Michael Shields' cousin.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. But I can't think, but he's the one that put, you know, usually you go to a fair show, you dressing out in a little hot tent. Man, we had Winnebagers, had 2 Winnebagers, we had a motorhome and another camper, air conditioned. I mean, it was really a great time.
Yeah, he fixed y'all up. That's awesome. Yeah, Plunkett's a buddy of mine, and he messaged me after that and told me, you know, said he had a great time with you guys and said it was a fun match. And, you know, and when he first won that Mid-America title, we did a podcast together where we kind of talked about the history of that Mid-America belt. And he takes a lot of pride in, you know, kind of carrying on the heritage of that title. And, you know, we talked about, you know, Eddie held that title and Tommy held that title.
Gene, it's really cool. And the thing they done, which you're going to laugh about this, and which Tommy might too, but I remember Tommy, Eddie, Dutch, there was a whole bunch of them held that title. But I used to think, if I was going by what I thought was the ugliest titles in the world, that would actually been one of them. But I mean, I looked at it, and the cool thing about it, they have got the exact same. I mean, it's made the exact same way. But I used to think, like when Eddie and Tommy and all them had it, I thought this is almost. I mean, and bless her, I love it now the way it looks. When I was looking at it the other night or whatever, to me it looks cool. It just used to look so plain Jane. I thought it was kind of generic looking, but now that I look at it, I think, man, that was cool. I don't know what I was thinking, but I mean, you know, it's a cool throwback is what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I said, Plunkett is, I've always got along real well with Plunkett. And this is the thing, when I got home, Gene, Melissa asked me, she was asking me something about the weekend, and I told her who me and Tommy wrestled. And she said, you know what? Said he's got to be a good guy, ain't he? I said, oh yeah. I said, both of those guys are really good guys. And I said, well, why do you say that for though? And she said, because I remember your dad always, and she said my dad didn't ask about a whole lot of people, but like when I'd tell him I'd been around Plunkett or whatever, he'd ask me how he was doing, but my dad always, but Plunkett was always so respectful, and he would always, like when he would come to the fair shows and all the shows that my dad would go to with me, he would just sit with my dad and ask my dad story after story after story, and my dad would tell him, and my dad really thought a lot of him.
Yeah, he loves the business and respects, guys that, like your dad and you guys, and he was kind of born too late. He's one of those guys that you look at him and if he'd have been around back with y'all in the heyday, oh man,
Oh, and he's a throwback. I mean, look at him. To me, he reminds me of one of the, the guys like from back in the day. And so, like I said, he's a great worker. And I asked him when we got back, I said, because I told him before we went to the ring, I said, now, when I take my glasses off, I said, I can't see very well. And he said, what? I said, I can see you standing there. I said, but I can't really see how far you are from me. I said, I can't. And I said, and I tell everybody that now. And he laughed. We got back. I said, now I can't see, don't you? He said, what do you mean? I said, a few of them punches. I said, my fist hurts. And he said, well, man, I was afraid I hit you a couple of times. I said, well, you probably did, but I'd rather you hit me than not. But anyway, he's cool. I mean, he's, like you said, he's a throwback guy, and I really like him. And like I said, my dad really liked him a whole lot.
Tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Friday, the day it drops, tomorrow I will be in Tupelo, Mississippi at VIP Championship Wrestling for a big show they got there, and I will be there with copies of Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, the Uncrowned King Professional Wrestling. I'll have some stickers for Dangerous Conversations, for the USWA podcast. So stop by the table, say hey, buy a book, get a sticker. I'd love to talk to you and hear what your thoughts are. And
man, everybody come out and see Gene in Tupelo. Like I said, you can't ever tell where I might show up at, but everybody come out and see Gene. And like I said, he have books with him. And man, I hope y'all enjoy. Get you a book and read it, man. I've had a lot of good compliments as far as on it in the last 3 or 4 days. Gene, I mean, a lot of people's blowed me up on it and said that they thought we really done a good job. So I hope everybody enjoys it as much as I did as far as with you writing it and everything. And man, it was cool.
That's great to hear, man. I've been hearing some good feedback too, and I'm happy it's out there now and people are getting a chance to read it. And so that's really good to hear. And speaking of places we're going to be, June 27th, Tommy, you're going to be in Orangeburg, South Carolina for a big benefit show there. I know you always enjoy wrestling a little closer to where you live these days, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a drive, but it's a 3-hour drive. So, I don't know if I'm going to. No, I will. It's a benefit for a little boy. They're having a big dinner and then an autograph signing afterwards. So I'm really excited about that. And which David Garrick, he's the one that puts it on. And so anytime you go help somebody, it's always good.
Absolutely. You guys are great about doing those sorts of things. And I know you enjoy doing it. And, it's a good call. So that's good to hear. And then June the 28th, you're going to be heading up to Detroit, Michigan. Going to be wrestling for a Sweet Daddy up there.
Big Daddy or Sweet Daddy?
Oral. Yeah.
What?
Well, before we started, we was trying to figure all this out, and I think Tommy told us he was wrestling for the Sheik's Sugar Daddy, and I think we figured out that wasn't exactly right. Wasn't exactly right, but I think we got it sorted out.
Is that some of your comedy act?
I got to stay in practice. I got to use it during the plugs here. It's a weird time to do it, I know, but yes, come see Tommy if you're anywhere in Detroit.
In Detroit, Tommy, do you know where in Detroit you're going to be at?
Yeah, it's going to be at the Lincoln Park Community Center. Bell time 7:30. It's going to be a big meet and greet from 6 to 7:30. It's going to be a meet and greet. It's going to be. Hey, Detroit, man, I had a lot of fun in Detroit. I ain't never been there long, but when I've been there, it's been fun.
Hey, that's cool. That I've done a lot of studying on the old Detroit territory, and I read a pretty interesting book earlier in the year about the Sheik. So that's awesome. You're going up there. And also on June 28th, I'll be in Booneville, Mississippi at EPW Wrestling, and I'll have some books there for sale as well. So check me out there if you need a book. And then July the 4th, it's the Great American Wheelwright Bash 2 and it's going to be a free show with free food, fireworks. Tommy's going to be there. Hands of Stone, Ronnie Garvin, former champs in the house. You looking forward to that one, Tommy? That ought to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, somebody say somebody getting fired up, man. Gonna be fireworks. Gonna be big. It's gonna be a whole shindig. It's gonna cover the day. They're gonna have signings and fireworks, free food. I mean, free admission. You can't beat that.
Shoot, Gene, you can't ever tell who might show up there.
Man, you ain't kidding. That's going to be, it says, it's an outdoor thing because it's got fireworks going on, going to be eating. Said it's going to be at the Wheelwright swimming pool up there. Now, the last time I heard about a wrestling show involving a swimming pool, I seen Jerry the King Lawler wrestling the old Master of Pain, who would go on to be the Undertaker, and it was the loser was the one that got thrown in the pool. Now, are you and Ronnie Garvin, are y'all gonna have a match like that, Tommy? But who gets thrown in the pool, or what's happening there?
Well, I don't know if Ronnie Garvin's wrestling or not. If he is, I hope he's on my side because he still looks good. Hey, I mean, I'm getting old, but he's a little older, and I've seen him probably about 2 months ago, man, and he looked just as good now as he did then, So, but I don't know if he'll be wrestling or not. But I know it's going to be a big show. I think me and Richie Rich might be teamed up. But if anybody gets sold in the pool, I don't know. It ain't going to be me.
Spoiler.
They going to have their wrestling tights on or their swimming trunks?
Well, it sounds like it better have their swimming trunks. I don't know. Ronnie Garvin probably ain't going to wrestle, but he may slide in there and give that big punch to somebody and knock them in the pool,
Hey, what I'm wearing? I'm wearing me some flippers and some gargles. Y'all will see me in
there. You go.
God, what has he done? Because if they throw me in, I might even have some swimmies on. You never know.
Now, Gene, would you or Tommy either one know of the name you said? Jerry Lawler wrestling the Master of Pain, which wound up being the Undertaker. Would you or Tommy know? I mean, y'all know what town it is, but would you know what the place was called that you saw Jerry Lawler throw the soon-to-be Undertaker in the swimming pool over the top rope?
I don't. Where was it?
How about you, Tommy? Any guess?
Tell me, and I'll tell you if that's what I'm thinking.
Well, it's right out there at exit 20. There used to be like in Nashville had the Opryland as far as the thing.
Lakeland or something.
It's called Lakeland, and they had a train out there, Gene. One of the big deals, like when I was a kid, you go to Memphis and you go to Lakeland, and they had a park, but they also had a water park there too, and it was Lakeland where it was at. Tommy knew it. I'm shocked.
Yeah, well, I remember Lakeland. I always wanted to stop and go, but all the people I rode with was more grown up than thought that was kid stuff. Yeah.
And that's also the home of.
But I remember that because it's been there for a minute. That's probably one of the first water parks around.
Right, and that's also the home of Dave Brown, Gene. That's where Dave Brown lives, Lakeland, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Nice community out there on the lake and everything. It was one of the happening areas in the day, which it's still a happening area to live. It's one of the nicest areas outside of Memphis.
Nice. And see, that's what people like about this podcast because listeners are learning things. I'm learning things. I didn't know that's where Dave Brown was from. I didn't realize that's where that match happened. And so I've been getting a lot of good feedback about all the stuff they're learning.
Well, now hold on. Dave Brown is from Trenton, Tennessee. That's where he's actually from. But after he got to Memphis and was on TV there and moved to Memphis, Lakeland is where he settled. But Trenton, Tennessee is over by Milan, Tennessee, and everything. That's where Dave actually came from.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's give Trenton their credit.
Dave went from doing that Trenton news and however, and he went to that Memphis news. Yeah, and got to move to Lakeland because I remember, we'd always go by, man. Yeah, that was a swanky part of town.
Yeah.
So Dave moved on up like the Jeffersons, huh? He got out of Trenton.
Dave got out of Trenton and moved on up, and he's rode in a Corvette and lived in a nice mansion ever since.
Well, good for him. He's earned it, man. He was on everybody's TV, keeping everybody informed of the weather for many, many, many years when he wasn't calling you guys wrestling match or being appalled at whatever you and Tommy were out there doing to Lawler or PG-13.
Hey, he was appalled a lot.
He certainly was. Oh, good times.
Appalled at him and Dave Brown sometime. Lance and Dave Brown made me appalled.
Oh, come on, Tommy. You wasn't appalled.
Yeah. Hey, that was great. Dave don't get enough credit, I don't think, either. Which
No, he doesn't.
And I love Lance. I'll say that Lance don't get enough, but people do give Lance a lot of credit. But still, I think Lance could deserve more. But Dave don't get near enough credit as he deserves.
But, over the years in interviews, I have heard Lance correct people on that and say what you just said and say, hey, I enjoyed what I did and I was good at what I did. But now Dave Brown, he held up his end of it and he played a big part of it. And, they was a duo, Lance and Dave. That's why it felt weird when Lance left. It felt weird to say Dave and Corey or Dave and Michael St. John or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing people don't understand is how big business-wise that Dave had to do with everything, because Dave basically was put in a position where he was, I'm not sure what his title was, but he was like the GM or the manager of the actual TV station that we done our TV on. Now, do you know what? I mean, I'm talking about not for the wrestling. I'm talking about for the whole TV network and everything. So
he was like CEO.
Yeah, he was the head honcho. I mean, that you didn't go no higher than him. And I'm not just talking about for the news. I'm talking about the whole TV station. I mean, everything. Right. I mean, you didn't go no higher than Dave. He had a nice plush office and he had a great job, which I'm sure it come with its headaches also. But, Dave he done the wrestling to do the wrestling. That was one of the things that he done. But he was a major player, major swinger in town.
Breaking news: Dave Brown was a swinger.
Well, I didn't mean swinger like you mean, Gene, but I meant high roller in town.
I'm just kidding. That's one of those headlines people will take. Quote: Dave Brown was a big swinger in Memphis.
Right, and there you go, and he'll say that Doug said something again.
You'll get a phone call, an angry phone call.
If you're out there listening, I just want to clarify that was Doug that said that, not me.
Dave actually went to school and done all of his stuff, and I'm not sure what year all that would have occurred, but like Lance was more like Lance managed the station and stuff. Like he started right here in Jackson, and like I've told you, I think on here before, like Lance was one. I mean, a lot of people don't say a lot of stuff about the stuff that Lance does, but I mean, like the Bill Dance show and the different things that he started. But then Dave, when he come along, I think as far as the weather stuff, he done that. And then Lance, I think, liked him. And I think that's what got him into the wrestling deal. And then Lance had pretty much went all out of everything from where he was managing different things, stations and all that, to where Jarrett and Lawler had him hired. And I mean, Lance was making great money. I mean, he was making money like wasn't anybody else making money at those times. And I mean, Lance but here's the thing, Lance, we talked the other week about drawing money. I mean, Lance and Dave was on TV more than anybody, more than, I don't care at Tommy's peak, Lawler's peak, any of our peaks. None of us was on TV as much as they was. Now, Gene, a lot of people don't think about that. But listen, if you're on TV all the time, who's the people going to see more than anybody else? Who's on TV all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, but the thing about it, that's why Dave and Lance was like your friendly uncles or something like that. I mean, everybody liked them. I mean, you can't tell me anybody that, unless you just didn't like nobody, that didn't like Dave Brown and Lance Russell.
Well, and the thing about it is they played all. One wasn't trying to do that, outdo the other one. I mean, like whatever their spot was, it was, but they played off of each other so good. I mean, like you got your Gordon Solis and Gordon wouldn't have been no Dave Brown and Lance Russell because they just were so good together, and they were just some down home boys too. I mean, they were just old country folk.
Well, people debated for years, Lance Russell or Gordon Solie, who was, the best wrestling announcer. And you would think, well, you get those two together And man, that would just be amazing. But in '84, there was a brief period where they brought Gordon to Memphis, and Gordon and Dave worked together, or Gordon and Lance worked together for a few weeks, and
Is that right?
it just didn't work. Yeah, nothing against either one of them. It's just Lance was used to being the lead, and Gordon was used to being the lead. They had very different styles. And it's just really awkward television. I was glad they ended it and got Dave back in there, because nothing against Gordon Sully, but he did not blend into that environment at all, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Like Dave, like I was saying though, Lance had that number one, and they played offense so good where that was two number ones trying it. That don't work. Yeah,
exactly. That old saying, like The Rock would say, know your role. Dave knew his role, and he stepped in where he needed to. And what was great is when Lance was there, Dave played that number 2 role perfect. But when Lance went away, or when Lance would take vacation or whatever, Dave was able to step up and be the lead announcer like clockwork and not miss a beat. And so. He could do either one, which that always impressed me. And that's why I don't think Dave gets enough credit, because he could be number 2 or he could be number 1 guy if need be.
Oh yeah, Dave could carry the load. That's for dang sure.
Back to what Doug talked about before about Dave being the boss. That's what made it even more. And we won't go into this here, but that's what made it even more shot for the people who understood that and knew that. The day the whole thing unfolded on Power Pro, when you got Doug standing there next to Dave, the big boss of the thing, and then saying some of the stuff he was saying, you're just like, is the Dave going to shut the whole station down? Like, what's about to happen here? Was it, like I said, without going into details, Doug, is that something that was on your mind? Is all that was happening? It's like, well, I don't know what's fixing to happen with Dave after this plays out here.
Well, there for a good bit, Gene, Dave probably wasn't my biggest fan, but I mean, they've always got along and always had a great relationship. But there's been different things at times that I've probably done that I probably shouldn't have, and that to go back into time, I mean, that sure probably could have been one of them. But man, Dave was such a good guy. I mean, I would never want to put him in a spot or anything, and just sometimes stuff happens and everything. But you got to realize, shoot, how much stuff, and people don't talk about it, how much stuff was said on that TV, Gene, which, I mean, that if you wanted to make something out of something like folks do today, that something could have been said.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can go isolate certain lines and phrases that were said at different times where people now are just like, clutch their chest and go, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. And even then they probably were a little bit alarming, but nothing like it is in today's times. But it was live. I mean, by the time it happened, it had happened,
Back then it wasn't about no dang on feelings though. It was about drawing money. And then sometimes it went off the cuff maybe a little bit, but that's what drawed money. And we all took that in stride. I mean, when me and Dougie got arrested that time in Sistersville, West Virginia, Jerry Lawler put in a program about us being the world's most dumbest criminals.
No, actually, he put in a program, Gene. We went to prison.
I saw that clip.
Yeah, and I still, bless everybody's heart, I still got that program in my bag. But it said, it was big letters, all like capital letters. Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert busted. Gone to prison.
And most wrestling promotions want to keep that stuff under the hat, Yeah, it's in the program, big bold print, and everybody knew Lawler put that program out too, Yeah.
And it wasn't but about 2 months that me and Tommy was back there working.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it worked back then. You'd have some big blowout and people were like, well, they're never coming back. Everybody would end up back eventually. It'd be hard. We'd be hard pressed to sit here and name somebody that something happened and then they never came back. I'm sure we.
That was about 8 times they said I wasn't ever coming back.
There was a time where every time you left, they're like, "Well, that's it. Doug's not going to be back."
Yeah, that's what one of my buddies was funny. I got back from Japan one time and he called and he said,
Now, do you want to come back and work for a little bit? And he was actually Lawler's buddy. And I said, yeah. I said, I'll come back for a little bit. And I come back for TV, and that's when we was taping like 2 TVs a week, just like they would do it every other week. And they was taping 2 a week. Well, after I done the first one, I don't know, something, I wasn't feeling good or something. I just left, and they got ready to do the second one, and they sent somebody back there to get me, in which I was gone. And the guy called me, and he's still one of my buddies today. And he said, damn, Doug. He said, you sure put me in a bad spot. I said, how'd I do that? He said, hell, he said, Lawler said he thought you might leave sometime, but he thought at least you'd make it through the first 2 TVs. And I started laughing. I said, well, after that first one, I just thought I'd go ahead and leave. But actually, to be honest, I wasn't really feeling good. And I thought, shoot, I need to get out of here. So I did. But there was a bunch of different, that was towards the end of everything. And but there was a bunch of times when we was actually doing good business and everything, just something wouldn't quite go right, and somebody get hot. Like I said, there was a lot of people think there's not feelings and different stuff, like Tommy said with guys. As far as these days, there's a little bit too much feelings. But as far as us getting hot at one another or not liking something, people think we all got along all the time and everything. That wasn't necessarily the case. There was times that a lot of us didn't get along and everything. That's what people think. I think they think the wrestling business, they're just all, you hear this, they'd say, I seen Tommy and Doug and this one that they was wrestling and that one out and Lawler at a bar, and which I laugh at people says that. I think, look, if you're going to lie, listen, Lawler didn't drink, so you didn't see him at no bar. You didn't see me and Tommy out with 6 other guys that we wrestled against, because we didn't usually, I don't say we didn't like them, but we wasn't, we would talk and stuff, and we probably got along with a lot of them, but a lot of them we wasn't hanging out buddies. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear people say that, people want to know the inside and out of the wrestling business. But when you say, they're very seldom. Like me and Tommy would have, like when we was traveling, we might bring one person with us that sometimes, and a lot of time there wouldn't be nobody but me and Tommy. And at times we'd bring a person, at the most it'd be 2 people, but we'd be having to do something, ready to carry 1 or 2 people with us, but we kind of traveled along. But when you hear people saying that, I could pretty much tell stories of the times we took people with us and everything. And we did have good times with people and everything, but it wasn't like we all hung out together, right? As far as our hanging out together would have been at the hotel, and like somebody coming to a room, one of the boys or 2 of the boys, and us sitting down having a beer or something. And that's pretty much would have been it with that one time.
Oh yeah. About the most we hung out, like you take that Memphis Mafia group.
Yeah, that was
them. Like if we was all in the territory together, then we was all hanging.
Yeah,
if we had to put 5 in the car, if we was all there together, then that's the way we would roll. But like Dougie said, that was few and far in between. It might be one more guy, and that would be about it. Cause, when you're traveling on the road, you're out 6-7 days a week. You got to travel with folks you love to be around, cause and it just and we was always good. There was a few more guys we would travel with, but like you take it Memphis Mafia though, if we all 5 together, we all 5 hanging together,
Right.
Be at the hotel, you'd see us out and about.
And Gene, here's the thing with us 5, we wasn't worried. I was fixing to say just a second ago, and I don't mean to sound bad, and I don't want to say we was doing anything wrong, but when you always carry 1 or 2 other with you, what have you got a chance of? That 1 or 2 is going to tell on you. Well, the one thing with us 5, as far as Tommy, Eddie, Buddy, Brian, and myself, we wasn't worried about nothing with them, because they wasn't nobody going to tell nothing anyway. But now when you get other guys, all you doing, if we was doing something, we didn't want somebody else to know, all you're doing is giving somebody else a chance to tell on you. So we just kind of, and I'm not saying that's what we might have been doing, but what I'm saying is to have a good time and everything. Me and Tommy can have a good time by ourselves.
Something that's very different about you guys as generation of wrestlers compared to now, and it kind of plays into what you guys was talking about. And last week, talking about drawing money. if people fell out, if you had some real issue that came up, but then, you realize later, like, hey, we can draw money. You guys could put all that crap aside. It didn't mean y'all are all of a sudden best friends, but y'all put all that aside to sell tickets and go out there and work with each other. Like, you and Tommy and Eddie and all these different people fell out with Lawler in ways, different times where people were like, there's no way they're ever coming back. But Lawler knew he could draw money with y'all, and y'all put all that aside, and y'all would come back and you would work. But then you look at like AEW a couple of years ago when like CM Punk falls out with the Young Bucks and they basically have him fired and send him away from the company. And now he's over making all this money for the other side. That wouldn't have happened back then. You guys would have took that big blow up and made money with it and worked. And even if you didn't like each other, it didn't matter because you're there to make money. You're not there to be friends and stuff, right?
Well, Gene, and you know what about that? And I think Tommy will go along with this. Personal issues drew money, still draws money today. And I think the people, I'm talking about through our TVs and through our different on again and off again deals. I always had respect for the guys that we're talking about, and I'm sure Tommy did too. But just personal issues. I think that people could see that there was personal issues. I know during our promos and everything, but I think people, and too, this is the funny thing about it. Back in those days when people say, oh, the fans didn't know and this and that. Well, the fans could tell, and the fans knew that there was something wrong every once in a while. When, Eddie done a couple of promos. Tommy probably said a couple of things on promos that people questioned or said that probably wasn't supposed to be said. I know I probably said a couple of things on promos that probably really should be said. And but
didn't either.
One or two, that's all.
I'd like to think I didn't, but I think that's why people still to this day, like when Lawler, Tommy, myself goes to town, people thinks, and this is what some people told me, said, man, when y'all go, and it's 2025, and people still remembering 90, 95 and stuff, what happened then, and they still think something's going to happen. Said, y'all was doing something right. So, to me, personal issues, and there was personal issues. And like Tommy was saying, but he was kind of laughing about the feelings, about people getting their feelings hurt, but it was about us having differences of opinion. And now they would say maybe it was creative, or maybe we just thought, or I'd laugh. A lot of people would tell me that they thought my dad was hot-headed every once in a while, or Eddie was hot-headed, or I was hot-headed, or Tommy was hot-headed. I don't think it was so much we was hot-headed. I think at the time when we were saying what we were saying, we was just wanting to be heard as far as our opinion, because we all had different opinions.
But and at the same time, though, that was a good thing. But because, and I've said it a million times, it's like a magic trick. Back then, people believed in they believed the business. They came because they thought we was real. And and it was real. Because some of them interviews, them feelings come in. And it was some like with Jerry Lawler. We had our run-ins with Jerry, and he. Same with him with us. And we knew we'd draw money together, and you'd have to put that stuff to the side. But at the same time, people, as real as they thought that wrestling was, the stuff we were saying, they believed too.
And you know what, Gene, what people haven't heard, and I don't think I've ever even said this before on anything. Well, I know I hadn't. I remember Tommy might have laughed because he was on the phone, but one day we called King on three-way, and it was one of the times after something, I don't know what I'd said, or maybe it was after that Sistersville deal, but I told him, I said, whenever I see you next time, I said, if I got to come to Memphis, I said, I'm going to choke you to death or something. and me and him, Tommy, was on three-way. He said, what'd you say, Doug? So I said it again. But, people don't understand. Now, that wasn't recorded for TV or for nothing. That was just me and him and Tommy talking. It was just one of the deals where I was hot. Like I said, but we say, why do people believe that? Now, if in our personal lives at times we've had feelings like that, towards people. It's like I said, we all, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we all had feelings, and I think that's why you had the characters that you had. And you said different things about people being characters, and if they would have made us say certain things, do we think we would have been like we was? Well, I don't think so, but I know that Jerry Lawler was smarter than, and he knew better than that, and he knew what the people would see if he let us say what we wanted to say, because he could see us saying it. And like I said, he would tell me at times, look, this is what we got. And then he might say right before I went out or after we'd done a promo and when I was going back out to the ring to work, stop by the desk and say just something like this. He might have he's got all his one-line zingers, but just something to freaking knock him. And then at the end of the show, he'd go back out there and he'd sure have something to say over that one-line zinger. But I mean, it was always cool, like I said, because we'd have a lot of leadway with things, and that's what I think really give you. And I think I know it made me feel real good, and I'm sure it did Tommy too, because it gave you confidence that they had confidence in you to draw money.
Yeah, and that's the kind of professionals you guys were, that even though there were bad feelings at times, and at one point you've told Jerry Lawler, I'm going to choke you next time I see you, but you still all trusted each other enough to know, like, well, whatever ill feelings is there, whatever issues we've had, we're not going to go out there and hurt each other, because it doesn't do any of us any good, because we're not going to be able to draw money tomorrow night if he can't wrestle because I choked him out there.
Right. And I mean, but the thing about it, Gene, and why I'm saying that is people don't, people, like I said, they think we all got along so good and everything. If you heard some different nights, some of the, I don't want to say cussing, but some of the words that went back and forth between some of us, like I said, I'd like to say we all did get along real well most of the time. And most of the time we did, but there was flare-ups. And I won't even say this, like about the time, which me and Tommy probably went home a few times, but the one time that me and him sat in Nashville and we talked for a while, and I probably wasn't at the best spot in my life at this time. And I just looked at him and I said, man, I don't want to go. I want to go home. And he said, well, carry me to the airport. So there's a flight that flies to Atlanta every hour on the hour. And at that time in Atlanta, there was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, from 1 o'clock, from dinner till 9, there was I think it was maybe American or something, but there was a flight that left on the hour, every hour to Atlanta, straight Nashville to Atlanta. And Tommy said, well, we looked at the watches and it was about freaking, it was about like 2:30 or something. He said, well, if you don't want to go, just take me to the airport. I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going home. He said, we'll just figure out from there. So I took off to the airport, dropped him at the airport, and I went home. He went home. They called us the next day, and that was it was Wednesday, wasn't it, Tommy? Wasn't it Evansville, maybe?
Yeah, Evansville. We went to Randy Hales. We had a birthday party for Randy Hales. Had him at the steak place with a little birthday hat on, balloons. Yeah, we was all candy kids. And before we got down, we was going to Trinity Lane. We pulled in that parking lot. At the Choo-Choo, Holiday Inn, the Choo-Choo had the bar, Choo-Choo. Hell, we didn't even go in the bar, son. We sit outside and talked a little bit. Doug looked at me. He said, do you want to go? And I thought, well, hell, everything was good. I thought when we left Randy. But anyway, we sat there and debated. I did. He took me to the airport, and I flew home, and he went home.
And they called like
Randy Hales got to Evansville, Indiana, and was dumbfounded.
They called me like Thursday night or something and said, well, y'all want to be at TV, won't you? And I said, yeah, we better call Tommy. And we called Tommy, and I think they flew him back in Saturday morning, and we started back at TV Saturday. But it's just, but like I said, people thinks. And like I'm saying, I ain't saying nothing was bad, but there's just times that you get, and I don't even want to say burnout, because it wasn't so much burnout, and I'm not sure what you would say that episode was there. But like Tommy said, because I should have never said nothing that went on and we'd been cool. But like I said, that was one of the times I guess I was the instigator of bad. But I guess I just needed a break, you know. And people don't realize, you know, you're trying so hard to draw money and do right. And if you're taking pride in what you're doing, you're putting that on your shoulders, and you are actually carrying a lot. People don't think you are, or you know, you've got no worries. You're just a wrestler. You're just going out there and wrestling. But every night we're wrestling, and we're thinking about that next week. We're thinking about drawing money. And you talking about if you want to put pressure on yourself. And I mean, that was our job. So I'm not saying that nothing is wrong with pressure or whatever, but when you're wanting everything to do so good, and you want everything to be perfect, and you want everything to be better than what it is, I don't even care how good it is, Gene, but you're still wanting it to be better. You're putting a lot of stuff on yourself.
And there again, what a lot of people don't think about. I mean, you know, I mean, it's the everyday thing of drawing money, and they just looking at it like, well, hell, they just going out there having a good time. But it's like they said, you're in a car, 200-mile trip, you got to drive down and drive back. You worry about if you have a car crash or tire blows out, you're stuck, stranded, or you get there and you get hurt at the matches. I mean, there's so many moving parts in between all that stuff, and there is, and a lot of times I've never thought about that, even just then when Dougie said that, but you know, you worry about it, especially you know, we lost Sam Bass and Pepe Lopez and Frank Hester. I mean, coming back from Memphis one night, I was in Birmingham, Alabama, and got a call that they'd been in a car wreck, you know, and we're all gone, and so. I mean, that makes you think about stuff too. I mean, you know, it ain't just going to that building and wrestling. There's a lot of moving parts in between all of that.
Yeah, with all the miles you guys put in and all the time you spend on the road, it's really just a miracle that, you know,
Gene,
more wrestlers didn't get lost.
Gene, we are very lucky. Tommy and myself, I did most of the driving, but I mean, I'm not the best driver in the world. When I say I think I'm a good driver, but I drove really fast. I don't want to say I learned from the guys before me, but the guys before me and Tommy, they'd go 100 miles an hour, and it wasn't nothing for, you know. And I mean, I'd set the cruise on 85 or 90, and I mean, it wasn't nothing. Everywhere me and Tommy went, as far as on the interstate, I mean, the back roads, I'd slow down just a little bit, but on the interstate, we was just wide open. And knock on wood, we are very lucky. We're fortunate, and I'm thankful every day of things that you know could have went wrong that didn't. And you don't know how lucky all of the guys, all of us fellas are, as far as how we traveled. And I mean, we pushed the envelope on a lot of things, and man, we're very fortunate. But we've lived a good life. I think I've told Tommy, me and him talked about it before. Man, I know I've done some things I probably shouldn't have done, but if you go back, I don't know that I would change very many of them, because man, we've lived a good life.
Yeah, and it got you where you are today. And if you're happy there, you don't know if you went back and changed anything. You don't know what would change that. So, you know,
you're exactly right. Like Tommy's told me before. I mean, hindsight's 20/20. You know, anybody can say whatever they want, and you should have done this or should have done that. But knock on wood, I mean, Tommy's living on the beach, and him and his wife, that they're in a good place. And me and Melissa are in a good place. Gene, I mean, the wrestling business. Me and Tommy can say whatever about it we want, whatever as far as we think about it now and the changes, but I don't think we could say we would want to change anything about it. I mean, during our days.
No, and I mean, because if you change one thing, it's like you said, Gene, if you change one thing, other things are going to change. And overall, I think it's been a whole lot more good than it has bad. So, yeah, I mean, if I made some dumb choices, why, hell yeah, I have. And if anybody tells you they hadn't, then they telling the fib. You know, we all made bad decisions. And at the end of the day, I'll be 69, my birthday, been married 45 years, got 3 kids, got 10 grandchildren, and just had a great grandbaby. My granddaughter Haley, she just had a little 5-pound baby girl.
Congrats.
So life's good, man, and we take it, and I mean, sometimes we think about how bad we got it or this ain't right, but there's always somebody got it a little worse than we do, if not a whole lot worse.
And you know what, Gene, to wake up every morning, I mean, and me and Tommy might ought to be the thankfulest too that says a prayer when we do wake up every morning. But I'm gonna tell you, if Tommy wouldn't have been in the places that he would have been, if he wouldn't have been in Atlanta, he would have never met his wife there. So I mean, I would say if I wouldn't have been in the places I'd have been, I'd never met my wife. I mean, I've lived a good life. I think Tommy has too, and I mean, anybody can say whatever they want about the wrestling business, but I think the wrestling business has been great to Tommy. It's been great to me. Like Tommy said, now me and him might have made a few bad choices, but who in life, unless you're living in a shell, hasn't made a choice or two bad?
No, absolutely. And you know what's really cool now is used to you guys had to ride the roads, and like you said, during the matches, you were constantly having to think, what are we going to do to draw money next week? What are we going to do to draw money? What are we going to do? And nowadays, man, you guys are getting to go to places like, these 3 days you just had last weekend, and you're able to go meet the fans, enjoy yourselves, just have put on a good show. You don't have that stress on you of if we don't draw them back here next week, there's not going to be food on the table. Now you can enjoy what you've, created for yourselves in this wrestling career.
And Gene, the funniest thing, and I've said this, I would never say it because I didn't want to admit it, but I used to be the world's worst. Tommy'd have to drag me out to places to get me to go talk to people and everything. And he was more of the saint soldier that wanted to say hello to everybody. And I just thought, if I just stay back here, and I think I never meant bad by that, but I think I felt comfortable in the dressing room. And what I mean by that might sound funny, but I felt more comfortable by myself and as far as around few friends. And I didn't have a lot of friends, but like Tommy and maybe one or two or three of the other guys that we work with all the time. And you got to realize, Gene, as far as like at home, we wasn't ever at home, but I mean, I had 3 or 4 buddies at home, but I mean, I talked to them maybe once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something. But the guys I was on the road with, that was like our family. I mean, as far as, but it wasn't, like I said, I could sit down as like you was in your own little purgatory type deal where,
Right.
where couldn't nobody get to you, and you could kind of say what you wanted to, and you didn't have to worry about being misunderstood or mistaken for anything. And two, like I said, me and Tommy was always just together. We could say, we'd say anything because I knew it wasn't going to come out. Like Tommy said, if it was Eddie, Buddy, or Brian with us, and me and him, us 5, we didn't have to worry about that because wasn't none of us saying that. I mean, we'd mess with one another, but wasn't nobody saying nothing that we said, and we said a whole lot of stuff.
Hey, it is like Dougie. I mean, when I broke into business, I started with Eddie Marlin and Tommy Gilbert. So Eddie and Dougie would come to the matches, and so I knew them then. But and then when Eddie started in the business, well, Eddie had his little routine he liked to do. Well, Dougie, probably 13 or 14, hell, he would come home with me, So I mean, I known him since he was a little guy.
Yeah.
So our bond's great. I mean, he's just like my own brother to me. I mean, he's as much family to me as my own family is.
Yeah, I mean, I have people message me and go, "Man, them guys seem really, really tight, man. They're pretty good buddies, aren't they?" I'm like, they're like family, dude. This beyond just they're pretty tight. Like, those guys are basically like family. So it comes across to people on this show, that you guys have a good time on here and everybody's comfortable on here, and so I'm glad people are enjoying the show. I'm glad you guys are enjoying doing the show.
I had this little. Anyway, he was a youngster. I ain't gonna say how old he was, but he was coming home with me one night, and I had this pill. I give him one. I took me one. I got him to the house. He would toe up. My wife chewed my ass out. Yeah, she said, "You better never do that again." I thought it was funny at first, but she made me feel bad afterwards.
That's the funny stuff, Gene. And you got to realize they've been 3 or 4 different people that, like me and Tommy's doing stuff with, and they've asked me or Tommy wanted to turn on the other one and us have some matches and stuff. And I told Tommy, and I think we done it one time. And I told Tommy after that, I said, I ain't doing this anymore. And he said, what? I said, these freaking people know me and you are buddies. I said, this is shit. I said, I'm going out here and I did the one time I did it, I would think I was the heel and Tommy was the baby face. I said, I don't think these people buy this stuff more than anything. They know me and you're friends. I said, this is stupid. And which we did it for 2 or 3 weeks. And like I said, but there was like 3 other guys asked us to do it. And I said, oh, I'm not doing that. I said, just so people know we're a tag team or something. Or I said, or put us both be heels and be against somebody else. I said, but I don't even want to. I said, to me, it's insulting the fans to know, because they knew how tight me and Tommy was and everything, you know. I mean, it's just certain, and I think there's just certain people that's like that, and I don't care what you do, the fans are going to know that it's not, you know, it's just going to come across the wrong way. It's like insulting to them.
Yeah, because it's like you was talking about earlier. Like, fans can feel when there's the real bad, you know, intentions or bad feelings or whatever. When people can feel that kind of thing, but they also can tell when it's all like, all right, this is just wrestling. You know, these guys hate each other. They're not really mad.
Yeah, and it's like in Nashville and Louisville and times in Memphis where people get out and I mean, I'm talking about when you're put in spots and people run at you with weapons and stuff, and you're the only two together, and you know, you got to take up for yourself. And I mean that's actually what people don't understand, and they think everything's just all jolly all the time. You should have been in the car with me and Tommy when people would just jump out beside of you with freaking tire tools and shit and run at you. And like I told Tommy, I said, watch out, because the guy was closer to his side, and by the time I got out, and I'd always have a big stick in my vehicle right beside the door, and I got out swinging the dude's head, and he went running and everything. But I mean, people don't understand. They don't see that side of it. But that's heat. That's back. I mean, me and Tommy was heels, and people just, I mean, they'd start hollering at us going down the road. And, you know, when you got to stop at the red light, well, you can't really get away from them. And when they jump out with a tire or two, and then when you get running one way with a tire or two, then you see a dude sitting in the car with a gun. Then I start thinking, oh, shit, I better get back in the vehicle. And I told Tommy, I said, the freaking guy over there in the car's got a gun. And we took out and everything. But people don't realize those type moments actually happen.
Yeah, we just out having a good time one day. And these boys, yeah. I mean, we didn't know them from Adam, man. We stopped at the red light. And I mean, there's a lot of crazy out there, but we had good heat. And I think that's as many angles as they seen and stuff. It's like they just wasn't buying. They wasn't buying Doug and me. I mean, if me and him had a problem, we'd work it out our damn self, and we wouldn't air it out on TV. Where other guys could air their, you know, make it personal like that, and it would work in a lot of situations. But with Doug and me, it just didn't work because in Tennessee, they knew. I mean, hell, I grew up with, started with their dad and watched them grow up, and we grew up together, and just we had that bond.
And it's funny because like watching it as a fan, I could more believe the feud with Eddie and Doug in '93, the sibling rivalry thing, felt more genuine to me than you guys trying to fight with each other. Like you kind of, I mean, Eddie, at the end of the day, Eddie and Doug's close, and but still, it was like, okay, that makes sense. They're brothers. This, I can see this, but with you guys, like, okay, they got booked together this week. That's what they're having to do,
Yeah, that's kind of what. I mean, was Tommy and Tommy was funny about it because I was thinking, well, shoot, these guys are going to pay us. I was thinking, should we do it? And I told one of them, I said, shoot, let's don't insult the people and tell them this. If you want to go a different direction with Tommy, with me, whatever, that's fine. But I thought, I don't want to insult the people and everything. But I mean, me and Tommy had great runs in here in the territory together, and while we was here as singles apart as heels and everything. And like I said, Tommy worked with after I worked for like a year and a half with Brian, Tommy worked a good bit with Brian and singles, and we done the tag stuff and everything. And I mean, it was just different guys, and that was, like I said, the last two of the last good runs that the USWA had as a territory was me and Brian, and Tommy worked Brian, then me and Tommy and PG-13. I mean, that was your two last, good runs, which I mean, I don't want to say Lawler was involved in that too, and we done tag matches out of it, but I'm talking about the programs in general that was programmed together that really done good business.
Because Lawler, he was working for WWE back and forth, so he wasn't,
Right.
He was just, I mean, and the last gig would have been with PG-13. I mean, and that was a heck of a run. I mean, we had a good run with them. I mean, with Jamie and Wolfie, man. Of course, deal with Wolfie's mom and my mom. I mean, and the people believed that stuff. I mean, because they could believe that we hated Jamie and Wolfie.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was believable stuff.
We're going to talk about this thing. We've put that off for a long while, but before long, we're going to talk about that feud, because that was a big feud. Like I say, it was one of the last money feuds in the territory. It made, PG-13. And so there's a lot to talk about there, because that was, for the time, that was one of the longer feuds. At that point, feuds didn't really rock on. Like, that started and went over, a couple of years, all told.
It sure did. And the reason it went that long was because the thinking that went into it, Gene. And I mean, a lot of it was Tommy's, a lot of it was Randy's, a lot of it, Wolf and Jamie would throw stuff at it, I'd throw stuff at it. But it was, like I'm saying, riding down the road when people think you're not thinking about wrestling, we was talking about what we was going to do next. I mean, and everything, say from Louisville, like a lot of, me and Tommy stay in Louisville a lot of Tuesday nights, and we'd go to the room and everything and have a couple of beers and start just talking about, well, first we'd talk about what happened that night at Louisville and what we thought if could have been different. And then we'd be thinking about what was coming next week, because we'd know what was bicycling around the following week from Memphis the night before. But then we'd be trying to think what was going to come after that, what we was going to do after that, after the finish that following Tuesday, and what we was going to come back with that next week after that. And that's what a lot of people don't kind of understand about what we was thinking about. And when you say you're thinking about the business, they think, well, they're just talking about TV, but we're talking about the angles for TV to come back that following week. Everything is always next week. It's not ever, you don't ever not think about that, because if you're working in that territory, it's all about that TV and what's going to draw you money next.
And like Tommy mentioned, in that era, Lawler was mostly going to WWF, so he wasn't doing all the towns. So you guys had to keep feuds hot to take around to all the different towns, because he was only dipping in and out, right?
What was so cool about Lawler at that time, I want to say this in a good way, he was like a special attraction whenever we did have him, because he was gone so much. When you did have him, it was like having something really special extra, but because he was gone so much and everything. Right. And I mean, he really meant something. I mean, you wouldn't have to have him in an angle with anybody, or he could step in like in a tag, like with Brian against me and Tommy, or they could bring somebody in for him to work against, or he could just work with one of the top heels or whatever. But it was like icing on the cake. Like you always heard Tommy say, you need to have a little something for everybody. Well, you had us in a program, you had me and Tommy in a program, you had Brian in a program, which you had me and Tommy in a tag program, you had Brian in a singles program when me and Tommy was always in a tag. So you had those two angles, plus we'd try to keep something, another couple underneath angles involved. And then when you could throw Lawler in on that, you could put him right at the top or right before the top. And that was just something extra that was really special. And that's what I think made all that really work real well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, guys, we've done it. we have completed another episode of Dangerous Conversations. It's been another fun one. I've learned some things, and anything you guys want to hit us with before we go?
So please send us some questions in, and we have the answers for them. Hey, and thank everybody for tuning in. Going to be June the 27th. I'm going to be in Orangeburg, South Carolina. The 28th, I'm going to be in Detroit. So, hey, everybody come out. But, hey, thank everybody for following us, man. We sure appreciate it.
Hey, Gene, I might go to Detroit with him, just say Sweet Daddy or Big Daddy.
Yeah, go meet Big Sweet Daddy up there. And
hey, but like Tommy said, hey, man, thanks for everybody listening and everything. We sure appreciate it. Hope everybody enjoys it, which I've been getting a lot of feedback and everything. Thanks for everybody listening. Listen, peace, y'all. Be cool.
In the heart of Tennessee, born with pride, Doug and Tommy taking rings in stride. Memphis legends never backing down. Wrestling warriors, they wear the crown. You scurry away, glory in their veins. Fighting legends breaking chains. In the squared circle they made their name. Podcast champions, it's their claim to fame. On the mic they roar, on the map they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast keeps ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage. From title belts to Hall of Fame, Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, pride. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast keeps ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage.